this whole time I haven't been live on Shorts, and that's terrible. I could have shared my lovely trip down memory lane with the Shorts viewers. Oh well, it's okay. It's fine. There'll be more times where I'll talk about my life in the game industry. I wanted to start the series, where I said I wanted a podcast where I talk about my life in the gaming industry. I really wanted to call it My Life in Gaming because in a way it's true. That is my life in the gaming industry. But there's a channel like that already. A very, very well-known, old established channel called My Life in Gaming. And I watch those guys all the time. So it's a shame. What's going on, RIP? No gaming news today. I was just sorry. I know I went live on Shorts very late, but on the regular formatted live video, I was talking about my life in the gaming industry, the companies I worked for and what I did, and some of my experiences. So, yeah, I apologize if you missed that. I forgot to be honest with you, I forgot to hit live on the Shorts format, so that was my bad. That was my bad. But you know what? Maybe what I'll do is I'll clip that part out from the beginning of the stream and I'll post it as just a regular video. So if that's something you're interested in hearing me talk about, then I'll post that up on the channel. But nice to see you here, Rip. Hope you're doing cool. Hope you're doing well. I hope you have a great. I don't know where you're from, but if you're in the States, I hope you have a great plan set up for you for the Memorial Day weekend. But this morning, we are going to be talking about Mad Max, especially Furiosa, that being the new movie that just came out today with previews from yesterday. Had a chance to watch it last night, so I definitely want to talk about it this morning. I'll also be talking about kind of just a recap of the Mad Max saga so far, because this past week I watched all of the movies, all of them. And yeah, I'm going to talk about them and then we'll rank them as well here. Rip, I'm going NASCAR race. Wow, no, I haven't, but I've always wanted to be one, to be honest with you. There was a time, again, this ties into my time in the gaming industry. One of the games that we worked on was a Jeff Gordon racing game that we released for the PC, for the computer. We also have one that was released for Game Boy because we teamed up with Jeff Gordon at the time to do a racing game for him, and we made it kind of like a futuristic racing game. So during that time, I was very into NASCAR. Like, I knew a lot of the drivers at the time. I was very much into NASCAR racing, but I fell off, obviously, since then. So I don't know anything about it now, but one of the things I've always wanted to do was check out a NASCAR race. Mad Max was actually an old movie. There are, let's see, well, now with Furiosa, there's 5 movies altogether. So I think the first movie came out in 78, 79-ish, in a way. So yeah, so we'll be talking about that this morning. Yeah, no, it was cool. I never had a chance to meet Jeff Gordon, but I felt like I did because, again, I was working on the game and we had a lot of sound bits. And we recorded a lot of videos of him because he would pop up on your screen and like give you hints sometimes on racing. And yeah, it was an interesting moment. Definitely an interesting moment. But dude, that's awesome. I hope you have a great time at the NASCAR race. That's really cool. Which one is it this weekend? I'm not really familiar with all the different races that happens during the season. So I'm kind of left out of the loop of all that stuff. I would also imagine it's like really loud there too, right? Man, that would be awesome. Yeah, I hope to attend one day. You know, I'm here in New York City, so I guess the closest I could go to would be Saratoga, I guess. I am the Knight Rider, the suicide. What would he say? I just freaking saw it. Mad Max quotes. Oh yeah, what does it say? Um, I forget. I don't know. That dude was crazy. Yeah, it's like I am the Knight Rider, the suicidal machine, or something like that. That guy was nuts. Oh, Charlotte Motor Speedway. All right, that's cool, man. That's awesome. Again, I hope you had an amazing time. Let me know how it goes the next time you're on the stream. But yeah, so yeah, let's start things off. Let's start talking about this Mad Max universe that we're in. So I think the best way to start things off right now is let's talk about the series as a whole, because obviously, you know, Mad Max has been around for a long time, and when Mad Max Fury Road came out, it was, let's see, the last movie before that was in 1984, I want to say. Hold on, I have the dates here. 1985. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome came out in 1985, and Mad Max Fury Road came out in 2015. So there was a huge gap between movies, right? And when Mad Max Fury Road, I feel like when that came out, a lot of people were introduced for the very first time to the Mad Max world, right? But old school fans like myself were like, wow, we're actually going back to this universe that we haven't seen in a very long time. Unfortunately, Mel Gibson not attached to it, but I felt that Tom Hardy did a brilliant job filling in the role, even though I do feel like Tom didn't really do much of anything. Most of the time, he was pretty much chained up, muzzled, and then during the time that he was on screen doing a lot of things, he was very little dialogue, but he had very little dialogue throughout the whole series, to be honest with you. It was really a movie that focused a lot on Charlize Theron's character, Furiosa, hence why we get now a Furiosa movie several years afterwards, right? So if we will go back to 1979, Mad Max came out in Australia. George Miller has been involved ever since the beginning. And this was one of Mel Gibson's earliest roles that he ever had. I don't know if it's his first role, but it's definitely one of his earliest roles. And the premise of the whole action movie, Mad Max, was it was a time set in the kind of near distant future, I guess, in a way, right? They don't really specify what year it is and all that. It seems to be very closely tied to still current day. Nothing too crazy, nothing too apocalyptic yet, right? But you could tell that they're in Australia and it's not the Wild West, but there's definitely a lot of crime that is, rampant. And the police system there is it felt very much like RoboCop, like Detroit, like OCP, very much like, the cops were tasked to do whatever they needed to do to fight crime, even if it just means just killing the criminals straight up. And Max, whose full name that I totally forgot was Max Stanakity or something like that, is such a weird ass freaking name. But the only time you hear it a couple of times in the movie, but then the only other time you get reminded about his last name is in the credits. But Max plays his too cool for school police officer who's very good at handling cars, good with cars, good at racing and all. And you could tell he's kind of on the verge of wanting to retire. He has a wife. He has a child. And, things are getting a little bit too nuts. Too nutty out there in the streets, right? And, there's this one big gang that is terrorizing a lot of the people's towns and neighborhoods. And one of his buddy cops ended up getting killed by that gang. And because of that, the more he wanted to retire. So he tries to take a break. and then his wife has a run-in with the gang. You know, one thing leads to another. Gang tracks him down, kills the wife and the daughter, right? So this sets Max off in this like psychotic revenge adventure. And all he wants to do is kill all members of the gang, in which he does at the end of the movie. And then by the end of the movie, he just keeps driving. You know, so in a way, you're kind of left thinking, all right, this guy is now going to forever live a life on the road now. Right? So that's pretty much the gist of the movie. Now, the first movie was iconic only because we were introduced to this new character. We're also introduced to Mel Gibson, really, for the most part. Potential new action star, right? And then, of course, we know that later on he, you know, showed up in Lethal Weapon, which made him very famous. You know, he's done movies like Braveheart. So he was very well known to become an action star, and then much later on to become a bigot and an anti-Semite. But that's neither here nor there, right? A bearded Mel Gibson should be the night. That would be awesome if they were to do like another Mad Max movie and they had him come back as a new Knight Rider. Like, I'm the new Knight Rider. I'm your suicide machine hitmaker or whatever. That would be freaking brilliant. That would be amazing. But yeah, the movie in itself was very much considered to be like an independent action movie because it had limited release here in the United States, but it really was big in Australia. And I'm reading here online, it became a top grossing Australian film, holding the record in Guinness Book of Records for decades as the most profitable film ever created, and has been credited for further opening the global market to Australian new wave films. So that's one of the biggest claims to fame of the original Mad Max film that came out in 1979. Now, fast forward a couple years later, we have 1981, where Mad Max 2, aka The Road Warrior, as it was titled here in the United States, came out. And this was really the first time real American audiences were introduced to the Mad Max character. And this movie like goes far forward, like fast forwards to now we're getting into more of like the apocalyptic kind of environment where you start seeing the wastelands develop, you know, people fending for themselves. Oil is a hot commodity, oil and gasoline, right? So you could see that that is like the biggest form of currency, or I guess the biggest thing to really gather and scavenge. So when we are introduced to Max here, Max is already been on the road for God knows how long. Again, they don't really specify the amount of years he's been, you know, this is, you know, he's been out there. They don't specify the year that we're in, but we could tell this is much, much more into the future, right? Later on, we come to find out that everything that happened in society was due to also nuclear fallout and all this stuff. That was kind of like unveiled in the third Mad Max movie, Beyond Thunderdome. But here in Road Warrior, the big premise and the big theme here is mainly because Max is on the road. He's looking for gasoline, right? He's looking for oil and fuel. And he comes across this little town that is basically guarding an oil rig. So they can produce their own oil and their own gasoline. But they're just like renegade kind of gang that is going around, you know, pillaging villages, pillaging and you know, raping people and killing people, of course, to get oil and gasoline. So they ask Max to help them out. Max is reluctant, but he finds out he has no choice because this crazy gang takes up his car, you know, destroys things. So he has no choice. He needs a way to kind of not only get back at them, but get himself back on the road. And he's going to use these guys for help. He befriends a guy who tries to steal his stuff before, owns a gyrocopter, right? So now we have someone who could like fly in the air as well as having vehicles on the ground, right? So it became just a big us against them type of movie, right? And story wise, I mean, the Mad Max movies, at least the first two, very little on plot, very simplified plot overall. It's the action that really gets you and hooks you in. And one thing good about George Miller is that he's very good at these action sets and these action sequences. When it comes to like the car racing, the stunt work, the car flipping, the jumping, the explosions, very good with that stuff. Especially when you look at the stuff he accomplished in the first two Mad Max movies, when everything was very practical and there wasn't any use of visual effects, digital effects, CGI, or anything like that. Star-Lord with the quote right there is like, "I am the rocker, I am the roller, I am the out of controller." Very famous quote. Love it. In Road Warrior, when the guy was introducing the leader of the gang, he's like, "He is the Ayatollah of rock and roller." You know, very, very famous line that later on wrestler Chris Jericho took on and used that as kind of his gimmick. You know, but Mad Max 2, again, there's this little kid that was, they called him the feral kid. He used a boomerang that was able to chop people's hands off and heads off that he befriends. A very common trope, like in the early 80s action movies. And you've seen this like in the Conan movies and other movies of that time, is that there always has to be someone that the main dude, who's like a badass, has to partner up with some sort of comic relief or something that is kind of awkward, right? So you had Max, who befriends the gyrocopter guy, who's kind of like an awkward kind of comic relief kind of dude, right? And then the little boy befriends him, takes a liking onto him, right? So you see that a lot during the action movies of that time. And basically what happens here is that they eventually were able to fend off these guys. They, got a rig to kind of leave the compound, and giant action sequence as this gang is trying to take over the rig because the rig has all the gas, or at least they thought they did. Later come to find out that the rig was just filled with dirt, and the separate convoy left with all the gas in their vans and all that. And it looked like Max wasn't even aware of that because he was kind of surprised by the end of it when we thought he was going to die. And the rig, kind of turned over and all that. But he made some friends. He had some stuff going on. And he continued his life on the road. Right? And that was all it. So again, very light on plot. Very simple to follow. At the end of the day, you watch a movie like that for the action sequences, the over-the-top absurd characters, which we got a lot of. And that was Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. Hey there, I want to say your name right. Eliezer? Hello from good morning to you. Or are you saying good morning to me? What am I saying? Okay, I need more coffee, guys. I'm sorry. Was nice seeing you from Brazil. I have a lot of Brazilian viewers. It's amazing how a lot of people from Brazil either watch my streams or watch my videos. And I noticed that in the stats too. Hey, Audrey, good morning to you, or good evening. I don't know what time it is where you are, but thank you for saying hello and thank you for chiming in. We're talking about Mad Max this morning. Guys, also don't forget, if you can, kindly please hit that like button. Very much appreciate if you do that. Would love it if you do that. But yeah, we're talking about Mad Max. Just recapping the series so far before I get into my review and discussion on Furiosa. Audrey, it's 7:55 where you are. Okay, so you are on the West Coast. Awesome. Nice to see you here. Thank you so much. So like I said, Mad Max 2, very thin on plot, but great action sequences. And I'll be honest with you, watching these movies now, the first two movies aren't really that great. I'm just going to say that here. I know, hot take. I know, hot take. They're not great, but they're classic in a way because, again, during that time in the early 80s, we didn't see a lot of movies like that. And for what it's worth, and for the action sequences alone, they are very iconic. And that's what turned Mad Max into a very iconic figure. The whole concept of the apocalypse at the time, Elysier says it's 11:55 there in Brazil. Okay, awesome. That's your nighttime, I believe, right? If I'm not mistaken, or morning, I'm not sure. Early afternoon, I don't know. But again, I appreciate you guys for hanging out. And if not for nothing, it introduced us to Mel Gibson, who later had a really amazing career in the 80s and 90s. I already kind of hinted as to what led to whatever stuff happened afterwards, but we won't talk about that right now, you know. But like I said, for the time, especially like, you know, when there were a lot of these kind of like new action films that came out from other countries, I like to say the Oscar de Laurentiis days, right? Or what is that that company that put out a lot of those action movies? Canon, the Canon years, right? You know, we got Rambo, you know, then we got introduced to Commando, you know, so it was very, very refreshing to see movies like this coming out. Just a new take, and the whole apocalyptic kind of feel and look, a lot of that influenced many different movies moving forward. Anytime there was any reference to the apocalypse, they usually would borrow from Mad Max, especially from the renegade gangs, the crazy heavy metal looking gangs. One particular person showed up not only in Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, but also showed up in the movie Weird Science as kind of like a walk-on when I believe one of the guys, Wyatt, or one of those guys, wished to kind of be strong or you know, kind of do this thing to make himself more alluring to women. So he said, oh, why don't you pick a fight with someone? And then they had like these biker gang showed up that looked like they came from the apocalypse. And the same guy, same actor, in the same type of character showed up in Weird Science. And he was the same dude that was in Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. So I thought that was really, really funny. What's up, Sergatov? Good morning. Thank you for chiming in. Elysier, been studying English for over 7 years, and you're going to the United States. Awesome. When are you planning to go? When are you planning to visit? And where in the United States are you going? That's going to be really fun and exciting for you. So that's awesome. Mel Gibson never played a villain in movies. Not in movies, but I think Mel Gibson played a villain in that Continental series that came out last year on Peacock. That is like the spin-off prequel to John Wick. I think he played a villain there. And he may have played a villain in some of his more recent movies that not a lot of people have watched for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think that's the case there. So after we get Mad Max 2 in 1981, fast forward 4 years later, we get Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome in 1985. Woof. I got to be honest with all of you. This was a horrible rewatch. This movie is painful. It is hands down, and I know I'm kind of spoiling it when I come to the rankings when I do that later. It is hands down the worst movie in the Mad Max franchise altogether. This is what I call the MTV generation, where everything, or a lot of movies as that time, felt very MTV-like. They had to cast some sort of popular person, whether they're a singer or someone who is not an actor, to act in the movie. And in this movie, they got Tina Turner. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Tina Turner. She's a great singer, great songwriter, great performer. But to be cast in a post-apocalyptic action movie, no, not a good fit. And this was one of the first times when, was it The Expendables? No. I think Mel Gibson showed up in The Expendables. Did he show up in The Expendables? Maybe the third one? Second or third one? Not the first one. Christopher? Love. Thank you. Your toe? My toe? Our toe. There you go. But Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome went completely in a weird direction. It was the first time Mad Max was PG-13, and even though in 1985 PG-13 didn't really mean much of anything because you could still get away with some stuff back then, it was definitely geared towards a more casual, younger audience. And it felt like I was watching two different movies at one point. First third of the movie was Mad Max. We get introduced to Max. But we got introduced to Max by that same gyrocopter dude that we saw in the previous movie. He now has a son, and he's flying an airplane, and he steals this convoy of camels, right? And it belonged to Max. But of course, he wouldn't know that because Max was all covered up and everything. Goes to this town. I think the town was called, if I remember correctly, Barter Town. And the guy is there, sees Max there, but pretends as if he doesn't know Max. So I got really confused. I'm like, okay, where's the continuity here? Where's we're not following the whole plot here, the whole things that happened before. Okay. But basically in this town, Tina Turner is the boss of the town. And Max is like, hey, I'm not here to trade. I'm here to find someone who took my camels, and I want my damn camels, damn it. And it's like, how about this? Barter your life for 24 hours. Do what we say, and we'll make sure you get your stuff. He's like, cool, I'm in. And what they want to do is they want him to take out this other guy that's working in this town who says he's running the town, but they don't want him to run the town. Right? And the guy's name is Master Blaster, but it's not just one guy, it's two guys. Master is this little guy that sits on this thing behind a guy who's like gigantic and strong, and he's called Blaster. So you had Master and Blaster, right? So it's Max's job to try to confront these guys and get them to stand down somehow. Obviously that didn't work, so now they have to fight. And they have this thing called the Thunderdome, where it's like every man for themselves. Two go in, one comes out. And that's the law. And they have to do it that way. So now you got Max fighting Master in this crazy, no holds barred fight that somehow, for some reason, they're attached to bungee cords and they're flying and jumping all around and doing all these crazy things. You know, he eventually ends up beating Master, knocks his helmet off, finds out that the dude is actually disabled. He's like a deformed baby of a guy, but in a big, bulky body. And Max refuses to kill him. And they're like, oh, you can't do that. So now you're going to be banished and, you know, you're sent out to forever roam the desert. Right? And again, mind you, Gyrocopter dude fought with Max in this previous movie, sees all of this stuff happening. Not once did he recognize him, nor try to help him. So I'm like, what is going on here? Like, we're just like kind of ignoring everything that we watched before. Okay. So this is where the movie changes. Max gets lost in the desert, passes out, right? Gets rescued. And now he finds himself in the land of the Lost Boys. And I'm talking about like the Lost Boys from Peter Pan, right? That's what they're called, right? Those little boys. But here it's like boys and girls. And also now we have a bunch of these little kids in their own little encampment saving Max, and they're recapping to Max everything that they know about the world. How, the world used to thrive with cities and big buildings. And the way they're recapping things is the girl is holding a stick with a big frame that looks like a television. And they have drawings on the wall, and she's hovering this stick with the frame on each big drawing on the wall as if they're watching television. But these are kids who didn't grow up with that, so how did they know this? There's an explanation for that. Because they found a viewfinder, and in this viewfinder it tells the history of the world and how there was airplanes and buildings and bridges, and there's this guy who's a captain of a pilot, and they think Max is this guy. So Max, in their eyes, is like the savior, the messiah, who's going to rescue them and take them away. Why? Because he has a likeness to this guy in the viewfinder thingy, and guess what? They have an abandoned airplane right outside. Whoa. Max is like, you guys are all crazy. We're going to stay here, stay out of trouble, and that's it. Right? But of course, kids don't listen. They don't do as they're told. So you have a group of kids that leave trying to do something. They're lost in the desert. Max has to go save them. And they're like, all right, we're out here. We might as well do something with our lives. So there's Bartertown. This is our best bet to get out of our dumb situation and live a better life. If we overtake that town, or at the very least, take down Tina Turner. So they come up with a plot, and it's like the dumbest thing. And they're going to infiltrate, save Master, who's still alive. Blaster's dead, by the way. They killed him. That poor bastard. But they're going to rescue Master, team up with Master to take over Bartertown, overthrow Tina Turner, take over this. All of a sudden, in none of the Mad Max films have we been introduced to railroads or tracks. But for some reason, there's one here all of a sudden. And there's this one giant kind of like locomotive thing that has all of these like cabins that they could like put things in. So they jump on this cabin, break out of Bartertown with Master Blaster, who's now dressed up in like old English, like gentlemanly suits and all that. He's all of a sudden very proper. And of course, Tina Turner's like, you can't get away. And man, she's like over actress galore. Hey, you can't do that. We're gonna get him. I don't need another hero. And this is the only time throughout the whole movie, mind you, Mad Max 1 and The Road Avenger built its popularity and its appeal because of all the car chases, all the big stunt spectacles. Why do I have to wait an hour and 20 minutes or so to finally get that in this movie? But we did, and we got it. And it's not that great because you could tell that 95% of this movie was done on a sound stage. Unlike the other two movies where you could tell they were out in the open, everything's practical. This little Neverland that they got going on, soundstage. Bartertown, soundstage. Thunderdome at one point looked like it was outside, but when they were inside fighting, soundstage. And it's very obvious. And here it's also very obvious that they weren't doing a lot of their own driving. You had Mel Gibson at many times looked like he was just in a soundstage doing this. And it looked awful. What happened, George Miller? Were you forced? Was your arm twisted? It's like, we got to do a Mad Max movie because post-apocalyptic is hot with the kids today. And we got to appeal to the MTV generation. And guess what? We can get you Tina Turner. It was awful. It was so I remember watching. I'm just like, what am I watching? How much longer do I have? But long story short, kids escape. They have all the things they need to live and survive, right? And of course, it's another situation where Max is just left to wander on his own, on the road, in the open, and all that stuff, right? Okay. So that's that. That was Beyond Thunderdome, which is beyond boring. It was sucked. Horrible. Painful to watch. But I did it so that you wouldn't have to. Sorry, Doug, for stealing your line. Stoller, it's my least memorable Mad Max movie. Yeah. I forgot how bad it was. Because again, I don't think I've seen it since 1985. But it was god-awful. God-awful. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so Max and Gyrocopter Dude finally met towards the end of the movie as if they didn't even know each other for the first time. As if they didn't know each other from the last interaction that they had in the previous movie. What happened? All of a sudden they don't know each other? It's like, dude, remember? I drove that gyrocopter and I saved your life because you're about to die. And I brought you to that town and we helped them escape. That was in Road Avenge, in the whatchamacallit, the Road Warrior. Here in Beyond Thunderdome? Hi, how's it going? Hey, you gotta do something for me. Let's go. It's like, I don't know you. Like, what happened? It's like it's like they've never met before. What's going on, Oz OG Green? Into Hizzy? You saw it one good time decades ago. Sounds like it didn't age well. Nope, sure ass didn't. Tell you that right now. If you were to rewatch any of the Mad Max movies, do not do Thunderdome. Please don't. Unless, if we were like us back in the day when we did our bad movie nights, this would be a perfect candidate for that. What's up, my China? What's up? What's going on? It's Cass here. Everyone say hi? To Cass? Hey, Cass is here. Also, since my good old friend Oz Green, who I was talking about before, this was the guy that I was with, that I was talking about before, at that E3 where we saw Jake Lloyd. And we kind of whispered to each other that this poor kid has no idea what this kid's gonna get himself into. Oz, I don't know if you remember that. Also, I don't know if you remember, this is another funny story. I was with Oz at the E3 in Atlanta, and we passed by so many famous people that we didn't even bother talking to. And these were like nowadays they're considered to be well-known comic book artists. But I remember we walked by Mark Quigley, who's now a very famous X-Men comic book artist. And I remember we saw his table, and I said, "Hey, you want to say hi to this guy?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm good." I just thought it was hilarious. And then we also walked by the guy who's famous for drawing the Darkness comic book series. And he was just there all by himself. This was during a time when not a lot of people knew these guys, right? And so most of the time they were just there by themselves. No one walked up to them. No one talked to them. And we were one of them. we just walked by and just looked at them. But yeah, man, those are some of the funniest memories, man. Those are just the funniest memories, man. I was just like, nah, I'm good, you know. And then we walked by the guy who drew Darkness, and we're like, oh yeah, that's the guy that does the Darkness. Oh, that's cool. And then we just kept walking. Oh man, we were such fools, man. We were such idiots. Yeah. I'm telling you, like I mentioned earlier in the stream that one of these days I definitely want to do a podcast where I talk about all those days and all those memories because that is we have a lot of funny stories to talk about back then. Not to mention like the big boy movie we did. We got to find a copy of that. We did a movie. We were working at ASC Games. It's just one of those crazy things that we do. And we filmed a movie, and it was just so ridiculous. It was so funny. So funny. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, we need that, man. We definitely need that. We got to work on that. So stay tuned. If you want to hear more stories about old school video game industry days and our wackiness and silliness, it's going to come. I'm telling you, man. We were young and dumb. Yeah, as Oz says, 20-somethings. That's some things for sure. All right, getting back to this Mad Max conversation here. So, after 1985, obviously because that was such a great movie, it took, what, 40 years to get another one? Or 30 years? Right? So, Mad Max Fury Road came out in 2015. This is the first time a lot of people are introduced to the Mad Max universe. For those people who watched it back in the day like I did, we get to finally see a new Mad Max movie. Like I said, sans Mel Gibson for various reasons. And also it'll be, I guess for what George Miller wanted to accomplish, he would be too old for this. So Mad Max Fury Road introduces us to Max. Again, don't know exactly what year, don't know exactly how many years after the last movie, but we are introduced to a Mad Max, or a Max, I should say, that is out of his mind. He is basically crazy at this point because he's lived so many years on the road that he is just out there, right? And he gets himself captured by one of the gangs out there, and we get introduced now to this big lore where you have three major cities or towns, right? Fortresses, I should probably use a better way to say it. You have Gas Town. Obviously, that's where you get all the gas. They have like a mining facility there. They have like a oil pump. You have Bullet Farm, where they keep all the bullets. They manufacture the bullets and all the weapons and all that stuff. And then you have the Citadel. And that's where we spend most of our time there, right? And we get introduced to this crazy looking guy with the white hair and the breathing apparatus, not to be confused with Darth Vader, like a post-apocalyptic Darth Vader. Apparently, it's his brother that runs that runs Gas Town. And you got this other guy that runs the Bullet Farm, right? And it's within here we get introduced to Charlize Theron's Furiosa. And the whole premise of this entire movie is basically an introduction to Furiosa, who is really the main character in this movie. Mad Max finally takes us a backseat, and we get introduced to this character who has lived her life being like the big bounty hunter, the big go-getter, the big honcho for the Citadel guys. She's the one that, leads the convoys for trade, going to Gas Town, go to Bullet Farm and all that. But you know what? She's had enough. And she devises a plot to rescue all of these wives that are, basically tasked to bear children for this guy in hoping to give birth to new future warlords, right? So she saves them in this plot, and Max is there to eventually help them. Almost a similar situation with what we saw him do in The Road Warrior, where he had to help that town escape the clutches of like these guys, right? And Furiosa wants to get back to where she originally came from, which she calls the green place, where there was nothing but greenery and, things that you could grow, crops and all that good stuff, right? Later to find out that it no longer exists. It's all desert land, but some of the people are still there, right? So now she's basically, she wants to make sure that Max gets away safe and sound. She wants to get back at the Citadel, right? So she teams everyone up with the Citadel, and Max helps them out also do that too, right? And by the end of the movie, Furiosa lives on to now looking like that she was going to be the new head of the Citadel area, right? All the women, the wives, are all safe and sound. The big head honcho is now dead. That the whole rule has been overthrown. Everyone, the brother from Gastown has been overthrown, and the Bullet Farm dude got blasted in the eyes. And Max, just like every other movie, leaves, goes off into the sunset, never to be seen again. Because he lives the life of a nomad. He is not tied to one particular, location. His life is the road, and that's where he lives. And that's where we left off, right? So that's, to put it in a nutshell, Mad Max Fury Road, that's what it is. And Mad Max Fury Road is, in my opinion, one of the best action movies that we got in the 2010 era. Because the amount of practical stuff and stunts that they did for that movie was fantastic. Now, don't get me wrong, there was also CG involved. What's going on, James Dixon? I see you with your emojiness. Good to have you here. Oh, Oz Green. Oh, wow, the talent. Let's check out the local talent. Oh, man, stories for another day. But there was a lot of amazing practical effects, right? And George Miller, for a character, for a franchise that he hasn't been involved in, and mind you, this guy's old already, he put on a spectacle that was breathtaking, mind-blowing, and a lot of fun. And this is basically what people loved Mad Max for to begin with. Crazy car chase scenes, crazy stunt sets, a lot of action, high octane, fuel, full adrenaline, heart pumping, all that good stuff, right? And it was great to watch. Nice to see new characters like Charlize Theron's Furiosa. Nice to see kind of these new, warlords and the towns that they kind of rule on. Nice to be reintroduced to a new realized universe of the Mad Max universe. And that's basically the series up until now with Furiosa, And like I said before, the original two movies, although have iconic moments, and you got to give them a lot of credit for introducing us to an interesting premise, an interesting character, and one of the things that kind of led Mel Gibson to be a big star back in the day. Other than that, they weren't really great movies. And Beyond Thunderdome is by far the worst of them. I mean, that's basically, that's when the shit hit the fan and everything just went downhill from there, right? Starler, it's ironic how Mel Gibson never became Max during the peak of his madness. No, but he did become mad. And we have a lot of audio proof of it. A lot of it. It's only a matter of time. If we ever come across some sort of apocalyptic event where now we have wastelands forming up and the big commodity is oil, I guarantee you we are going to see him in a giant rig driving around like a maniac. Guarantee. So, with all that said about the Mad Max world, what do we say about Furiosa? Right? So Furiosa, that comes out this weekend, stars Anya Taylor-Joy as a younger Furiosa. The whole idea of this is, the way I looked at this movie, while I was watching it, and kind of when I was thinking about it afterwards, was this is like George Miller's attempt at really formulating the lore of this current Mad Max universe that we were reintroduced to in Fury Road. And a lot of the people the characters, I should say, that we were introduced to for the first time in the last movie, we kind of got to see their origins. We kind of got to see like their early days. Mainly Furiosa, of course, and how she became the person that she was, that we were introduced to in Fury Road. George Miller made this movie very much like a Shakespearean kind of play. It's divided into chapters, which we never got before in any of the Mad Max movies. And so you have different acts, right? But it's a very Shakespearean-like story where you have a person that is stripped away from their home, has their loved ones killed, or at least in this case, her mom, and lives a life under the rule and tyranny of the person responsible for all of that stuff. And has it in their mindset that eventually one of these days she's going to seek revenge and get her due diligence and, will fight back at these oppressors that did all these bad things to her. Typical revenge movie situation. And if you're someone who enjoyed Fury Road and enjoyed at least the story elements of it, and you wanted to learn more, this is the movie for you. If you really were interested in Furiosa, the character, and you were kind of interested to hear more about her and how she became who she became, this is definitely the movie for you. If you're looking for the same high octane, high adrenaline, non-stop action that we got in Fury Road, you're going to get some of that here, but this reminds me a little bit more of the older Mad Max movies where it was more story focused. Don't get me wrong, there are at least 2 moments in this movie where you got the crazy non-stop action sequences that felt like it lasted 20, 30 minutes. You get like 2 or 3 of these. But it's not like the endless amounts of action that we got in Fury Road. What's going on, Brittany Dove? Nice to see you back. Hope you're doing well. And we're talking about Mad Max this morning. So I hope you're up for that. So it was interesting. It was interesting to see not the difference, but it was interesting. It was interesting to see George Miller really attempt to solidify the lore of this universe, because in the past movies, there wasn't a lot of exposition. There wasn't a lot of explanation as to what's going on, what caused the apocalypse. Again, Thunderdome, we got that really cheesy cave drawing fake television program recap from these little kids, which was very cringy. But we never got like an understanding as to why things ended up the way they were, who runs what, Obviously, the only origin story that we got was Max's origin. We understand that, he was a cop, he was married, he had a child, wife and child got murdered, so he sought revenge and now decided to live a life on the road. And then whatever happened, and that was like an endless thing for him. And things ended up the way they were, and now we are in a scenario, or we're in an existence where we have 3 main towns. And mind you, this is just in Australia. All of these movies are just taking place in Australia. We are not in the United States. We're not in any other country. So who knows what's happening elsewhere? All of this just takes place in Australia, and that's it, right? But you see George Miller attempting to really solidify the lore of this universe that we're in. And for that, I totally appreciate. And I still found this to be extremely entertaining overall. But the action sequences didn't feel as grandiose and as impactful as Fury Road. Fury Road was heavy metal, man. Like teeth and bone, heavy metal. This is a little bit rock and roll. And that's how I'm going to explain it here. You know, and the reason for that too is because unlike Fury Road, unfortunately, you could tell that there was a lot of CG used in this one. Now, I'm sure it was another situation where it's like mixed live action and CG, but the CG was very apparent, and you can tell. You know, like even down to moments where you have Chris Hemsworth giving a dialogue, and you could tell the people behind him are all CG. Just by the way they're walking and they're moving, it looked very CG, and that was very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. You know, in a way, it reminded me a lot of like, what, a Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, but in the desert. But not as bad. I want to make it very clear, not as bad as that movie. That movie was god awful, and I'll be surprised if anyone even remembers that movie of me mentioning it. But I will say, Anya Taylor-Joy was really good. Even though it's hard to believe that someone so scrawny and tiny as she is can pull off action sequences like that. But she did a very good job. I will say she did a very good job. Chris Hemsworth was also very good as like a villainy character. But Chris Hemsworth is also very good at comedy. And this movie definitely has a lot of more laughable moments that once again reminds me of the second Mad Max movie. The first Mad Max movie was downright serious from beginning to end. The second movie tried to sprinkle in a lot of comedy in there, a lot of like calmer moments of just take a breath. This is a moment I can relax and laugh a little bit about some silly thing happening here. The gyrocopter guy was definitely that character to lend a hand in the comedic moments. The little moments with the boy. Here, there was a lot of these moments too. And you could tell, like, me and the rest of the audience would laugh at these moments. So it really did its job. You know? But what I heard, and there's this one lady that walked up to me after the movie. Missed opportunity too, man. She was very cute. And I could tell we have a lot of things in common. But she was there with her dad that was kind of like disabled. So I didn't want to kind of like hit on her during that time. But she's like, so what did you think of the movie? I was like, you know, I liked it. It definitely felt very Shakespearean. It definitely felt more of story than action. So I liked it. And she said, I didn't like it that much. It's like the CG took me out of it. Yeah. And I understand he's getting old. Probably doesn't want to waste so much time on live action pieces and practical effects. You know, but it was just she didn't like it as much as she did Fury Road, and she told me she watched Fury Road in the theater 16 times. 16 times, and all she was hoping was that this movie was going to be half as good as that. And it doesn't. From what she told me last night, it wasn't. Yeah, so maybe she'll see it 4 times or 8 times. Because this movie is still very much worth watching. Very, very much worth watching. And, you know, again, it was just really interesting to see the origins of some of these guys that we were introduced to for the first time in Fury Road. And we got to see the towns, the other kind of fortresses. You know, we spent most of our time in Citadel, right? And then we would see Gastown, but we never got there. Here in this movie, we actually got to be in Gastown and understand how that little area works. We got to be in the bullet farm and see how all of that works. You know? So it was good to be part of the world more so than we were in the previous movies. You know? And there's really not much for me to spoil here. This is an origin movie of Furiosa. The movie ends basically where we met her in Fury Road. And they kind of tie it together. How, you know, when all things were said and done, how she continued to do what she did. And then she plots, we see her plotting the escape of the women. going into the big rig, crawling into their thing, right? And that's how the movie ends. And then during the credits, they show flashbacks of scenes from Fury Road. Almost like it's like a tribute to like the Mad Max saga, because George Miller is really getting up there in age. Let's see. I just want to make sure here. George Miller is now 79 years old. Right? I don't know how many more of these he could put out there. But according to what I'm reading here, he does have an idea for another movie called Mad Max: The Wasteland. In March 2015, Hardy revealed that he was attached to star in 3 more Mad Max films following Fury Road. After the release of Fury Road, Miller announced that a sequel is in development with the working title of Mad Max: The Wasteland. By January 2016, after misleading reports which stated that the franchise was over, Miller reaffirmed that he is working on follow-up movies. In July 2019, a question regarding unpaid earnings had to be resolved before moving forward with the production, which was already resolved, hence why we got Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So, but in a way, the way the movie ended and the way the credits played out, it felt very much like, this is in honor of the Mad Max universe. And it would be nice if we got another Mad Max movie because they're enjoyable, But I guess one of the biggest things that people will criticize is the Mad Max universe worth, experiencing without Max in it? That's a very good question. I think Furiosa was a very interesting character, but we all know where things end up. Yes, she's still around. But can you explore that character further in a this is the future again? Or is it just we're going to get introduced for the first time to newer characters each time we visit this universe? Because this was an origin story to give us more of the lore. So what if the next movie was to kind of pick things up where Fury Road left off? But I will say this, and this is spoiler alert, so be mindful. I'm going to put this up there. So if you don't want to be spoiled, heed this warning right now. Mad Max himself does show up in this movie. Not in like an on-screen interaction with Furiosa or with anybody, but there's this really, really interesting moment where Furiosa finds herself in the desert trying to go somewhere. And we get a far shot, right? Up on a mountaintop. Or I guess way up on a dune. No, it was like a mountaintop. And lo and behold, there's the infamous V8 being worked on. And there's a guy dressed up in the Mad Max jacket, doing what he does that we know him to do, eating dog food out of a can, looking out beyond the dunes, beyond the desert, seeing little Anya Taylor-Joy doing her thing. And then that was it. That was a nice little reminder and a little tease to say, hey, Mad Max is around. Actually, they still kind of, if you think about it, they kind of started their journeys in this world almost close to each other. If you were to think about the timeline back then. But Mad Max, of course, Max himself would not have recognized Furiosa. Because again, he just saw like some person doing something out in the desert. And Mad Max would just happen to be there. Right? So that was really, and I really appreciate that. And I'm the only one who kind of laughed at that in the theater. I was like, huh. But not laugh like as, oh my God, that's funny. Laugh, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's pretty neat. So I like that they did that. And the interesting thing about Furiosa too, that we got to learn here in this movie is that because you kind of were led to believe that she was always in the Citadel under that rule, under that control, but that's not true. Yeah, and again, I am in spoiler territory here, so again, be mindful. And if you don't want to be spoiled this movie, then maybe you shouldn't watch. But Furiosa as a child was kidnapped by just random gang members that found this green place. These gang members worked for Chris Hemsworth's character, who I believe his character's name was like Dominus or Demetrius or something. Here, let me pull up the names here. So, yeah, Chris Hemsworth plays Dementus. Sorry, Dementus, right? So they obviously want to find this green place, and they're asking little tiny Furiosa where it is, but she won't speak. They try to escape. The mom tries to rescue her. They end up killing the mom, taking her back, and now she's being raised as his daughter. Calls her Little D. Little D. Not for that. It doesn't mean that. But Little D means little Dementus. And now we're chilling and we're rolling with Dementus's crew, right? And then that's where we get to the Citadel for the first time. And their thought, it was because they come across a war boy. And like, where are you from? And he's like, oh, I'm from the Citadel. Blah, blah, blah. We have water and all that stuff there. And it's like, oh, really? We should check this place out. He had it in his mind that he wanted to take over it. And then he comes to find out he can't. They're way too overpowered. And there's no way they have enough manpower to take this place over. And then we get to find out that because in Fury Road, Immortan Joe, who is again like the Darth Vader white-haired dude, and we know that he has his son Rictus, right, which is like the big muscular dude that he has with him. It turns out that he had a brother that we never met because I don't know. I think I'm trying to think. Yeah, the brother died in Furiosa. So you have Rictus. And his brother's name is Scrotus.
Wow.
So he has two sons named Rictus and Scrotus. You can't make this shit up. You really can't make this shit up. But we also see that he has the wives. And it sounds like he's constantly having issues bearing a boy, or at least a normal boy, because they show this one birth scene where she gave birth to what looked like deformed twins, conjointed twins, right? And so what happens is that Dementus shows up, and he wants to be in partnership with these guys, right? And there's this place called Gastown, and he said he wants to rule Gastown because he was able to infiltrate Gastown, and he'll make a deal. He's like, let me control Gastown, and then we could live in harmony. But Immortan Joe was like, I'll let you not only rule Gastown, but we'll still continue to trade and barter. You'll get your water and food, but you have to leave me Furiosa. Because basically he wants to kind of groom her to grow up to be one of his wives. Because they found out that, she's not really his daughter, because she finally spoke up. She's like, that's not my dad. In fact, he killed my mom. It's like, oh, that sucks. you know. So they agree. So, you know, hands her off. She grows up in that compound. She escapes the brothel of wives and decides to go into hiding as a boy, as a man. So this is a very typical trope that we've seen in other stories before, where the girl disguises herself to be a guy in order to kind of, you know, get away, escape, or to live amongst the men and learn what they know and how they're trained to just make her stronger at the end, right? And that's what she did. And she was able to slowly like work her way up the ranks because of what she was able to accomplish, all while in hiding. And there's this one guy. Now I forget who the name of this guy is. I don't think, did they ever? Yeah, Praetorian Jack was the guy that was in charge of the convoy, the trading convoy. So they would still do this trade where they would go from the Citadel to Gastown or to Bullet Farm to do the trade, right? So her idea was that she was going to sneak onto this convoy and have this person drop her off somewhere eventually or whatever. She was plotting something. I don't think it was like very well thought out. And this is where we get one of the big action sequences in the movie. But then she eventually has to reveal herself to this guy. But she's helping them because they're being attacked. You know, they're being attacked by it looks like it was Dementis's people or just some random rogue gangs, right? While they were making their way to Bullet Farm. And she helped out, and she proved to be a worthy person to have on board. So Praetorian Jack was like, hey, you know, I want you to work with me and finish up this run, and then we'll see what happens later on. And then we get to find out that they start working together, right? And then after some time, a relationship is formed. It doesn't look sexual, but at least a bond there. And he wants to help her get away. And during one of their last runs, he was trying to help her get away. It didn't work out. They got ambushed at Bullet Farm because guess what? Guess who's causing problems? Good old Dementis. Because Dementis has it in him that he just wants to rule things. He wants to be the overall owner of everything. Star-Lord, I won't even name my dogs after them, makes Twisted Metal look like driving Miss Daisy. Is this because of Scrotum and Rictus? But, you know, so Chris Hemsworth apparently took over Bullet Farm because he had this plot in mind. During the last convoy run, he said to them, tell your boss I want to hold a meeting with myself, him, the dude from Bullet Farm, because I want to talk about stuff. It's like, all right. So 4 days later, you have all the rulers in Citadel. And that's when he took advantage of taking over Bullet Farm. And now he was setting up a trap for this convoy. Fight, fight, fight. All this stuff. They get captured. Homeboy gets tortured in front of Furiosa. We get to see how Furiosa lost her arm because she was trying to like fire a gun out a window, and one of the big cars with the big tires, like a monster truck, came over and smashes her arm, and her arm is like all like badly damaged. And when they finally captured them, Chris Hemsworth says, "Okay, we'll torture this guy in front of her, but you'll be here hanging," and they hang her by the bad arm. And eventually she just rips her arm off, escapes on a bike. And that's how she loses her arm, right? So we find that out. And as she escapes, she made it back to Citadel. She's like, I'm Furiosa, I'm Furiosa. And she starts talking to everybody. And she's like, Dementus has a plot to take over everything. He already took over Bullet Farm. He's losing control of Gastown, but he has control of Gastown. And now he wants to claim the Citadel. It's like, girl, you're lying. You're crazy. It's like, no, look at me. I lost my arm because of this. And Praetorian Jack is dead. She must be telling the truth. So she vows that she's going to help fight Dementus. So she built herself a robotic arm that runs on gas power. So she has to rev it up every time she wants to use it. She shaves her head because it's a black thing. I'm Furiosa. It's Furiosa, not Furiosa.
Wow.
Wingardium Furiosa. But then, she ends up taking out most of Dementus's army. Finally captures him. They have a one-to-one dialogue that felt like it lasted for a very long time. It's like, oh my God, is this my little D? He finally realizes that it's her this whole time. He's like, I want my family back. I want the green place back. I want my mom back. And it's like, well, you can't. We all want things that we lost back. Sometimes we can't get them back. All this stuff. So it's a life lesson learned the hard way. She ends up killing him. And again, she has that in her mind that at the end of the day, all she wants to do is get back to the green place. So we eventually just see her grow up. What's going on, Victor Hugo? And then that's when we see her plotting the whole thing that we saw in Fury Road. And that's pretty much the movie there. It's like it's all divided into, I want to say, 5 or 6 chapters. A lot of story. But like I said, I really appreciated it because he tried, and I think he did a very good job at creating this lore, which we never got before, and sticking to it. Because as we saw, he didn't stick to some things before. Again, it kills me that the same dude that Max fought along with, that actually saved his own life, that in the follow-up movie didn't recognize each other, as if they never met. I just never understand that. I'll never understand that. But at least here you have 2 movies in a row that stick to the same canon, same lore, same continuity, and it worked for me. It worked for me. So let's say, for example, if I were to do Letterboxd ratings, first let me just remove the spoilers because I'm done with spoilers for now. And again, there's no crazy Easter eggs at the end of the movie. There's no hint as a future movie because when you're dealing with a prequel, what leads after the prequel is what we saw already before. So like I said, the ending of this movie leads into what we were seeing and what we were introduced to in Fury Road. So really no crazy secret ending here or big spoiler ending. There's nothing for an ending explained situation here. Not necessary. But if because again, 2015, I didn't have Letterboxd. I don't think Letterboxd was a thing back then. If I were to give a rating on Letterboxd for Fury Road, I would have given it 5 stars. This I would give 4. Worthy of a watch. If you want to understand more of the universe that we were kind of given in Fury Road, this is the movie for you. If you want to learn more about the characters that we were introduced to in Fury Road, this is the movie for you. If you're a fan of Furiosa, the character, and you want to learn more and see more about her, this is the movie for you. If you want the nonstop, high-paced, high-octane, adrenaline-filled action that it felt like we got nonstop of in Fury Road, you'll get some of that here, but like I said, this is really more story than action. And the action, again, some of it took me out because of the huge amount of CG that had to be used. And that's all. That's all we got. And that's Furiosa. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. Isn't that... I thought Jada Pinkett Smith was supposed to be the star of that. Women don't shave your head in movies. It can turn into dangerous, obscure references. It's Mad Maxine. You know what I would love to see a movie of? Because we already are getting this trilogy of movies. I want to see Mad Maxine, but 3 X's. Yeah. So if we already got, what is that? What was the name of the first movie in this? X, right? We got X. Then we got Pearl. Now we're getting Maxine. That takes place in the 80s. I want a future post-apocalyptic version called Mad Maxine. Triple X. Let's go.
Wow.
So yeah. So that's my recap, my review, my overall thoughts on Furiosa. Again, I really enjoyed it. Now, what's it going to do at the box office this weekend? Now, for a Thursday night, and I saw it like around 7 o'clock. And there was a good amount of people there. And I saw it in RPX. And for the most part, I think people really enjoyed it because it did one of those things where they clapped at the end of the movie. A lot of people clapped. But of course, the woman I met, she didn't like it as much. But I think most of the people did enjoy it. And it's Memorial Day weekend, so I think it does have potential to do big. But also, let's keep in mind too, the last Mad Max movie, Fury Road, didn't do a lot of money at the box office when it came out. In fact, it came in second. That was one of my trivia questions on the channel there, if you were able to catch it on Tuesday. It lost out to Pitch Perfect 2 its opening weekend. And it made like around 30 million. And this was pre, COVID pandemic. Now in a world where people are more and more comfortable watching movies at home, it's going to be tough. It has a tough road ahead of it. I think overseas it's going to do extremely well, but domestically it may have a hard time, which sucks because this is a type of movie you would expect to do a lot of business at the box office. So if I were to guess, and I don't know what it's tracking to do this weekend, if I were to guess, I was going to say between 50 to 60 million it's going to do this weekend. 3-day weekend, holiday weekend. I could see people wanting to go see this. The only other movie that it has out there, it's more of a family movie, is Garfield. There's definitely no crossover there, right? So yeah. It'll be interesting to see how things will pan out come Monday, Tuesday. More subtle 2016 Ghostbusters. Mad Maxine. Was that a quote that was in that movie? I'll be honest with you. I've only seen that movie once, and I hardly remember most of it. The 2016 Ghostbusters, I just remember how funny Chris Hemsworth was in it. And how in a recent interview, Chris Hemsworth said he wants to revisit that character one day. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but yeah, that movie was very hard to watch. Not because of the acting. It's not the fault of the actors. It's the writing. Very, very bad writing. Piss poor writing. All right. To close out our Mad Max morning, Mad Max marathon, let's rank these movies. I talked a lot about the series. I talked a lot about the newest movie. So in my mind, in my opinion, where do these movies rank? So let's go over here. I got the tiers all set up. And let's rank these movies. All right. So the rankings, the levels that we have here is Valhalla, 8 to 10. Great, but not the best, 6 to 8. Good, but not outstanding, 4 to 6. Not good, 2 to 4. And garbage, 0 to 2. All right. Next is kids. We already got the kids in Beyond Thunderdome. All right, so let's start off with the original Mad Max. The one that started off back in 79. I'm going to say that the 79 Mad Max movie was good, but not outstanding. I will say that. Then when we go to The Road Warrior, Mad Max 2, this is really where we get the apocalyptic feel. This is really where we get everything that we are familiar with Mad Max about. And I would say also it's good, but not outstanding. Because remember what I said before. At the end of the day, these movies aren't great movies. We watch them because of the action sequences, and that's it. Maybe some of the absurd, over-the-top characters we like to see. And you can't help but, mention that this led to a lot of influence. Anytime there was any kind of post-apocalyptic kind of look or feel that they wanted to achieve, they always refer to Mad Max. At least the world of Mad Max, right? Beyond Thunderdome is garbage. I'm sorry. That is a movie that I would be so happy if I didn't have to ever watch again. I may put myself through it if I were doing like a bad movie night, like on a stream, like a community stream or something like that. I wouldn't mind roasting it. That's fine. But for pleasure, watching on my own, no thanks. I can't. I can't do that to myself ever again. Cannot. Mad Max Fury Road. That is indeed Witness Me, Valhalla. By far, in my opinion, the best Mad Max movie in the franchise. It had everything that you would ever want in a Mad Max film. Great universe, interesting characters, a lot of over-the-top characters, fantastic action sequences. Like high octane, adrenaline, fist pumping, heart palpitating. Amazing, amazing moments. Even though it's a movie that's not really Max focused, still, what we got was brilliant. I wish we could get a Max focused movie exactly like Fury Road. I don't know if we'll ever have a chance to, but it would be amazing if we could. There's so much to love about Fury Road. What's going on, Death? Or the way you spell it, Death for Itch. You gotta give me a moment. You gotta give me a moment to acknowledge the comments. I can't just stop every time in the middle of me saying something to say hello. But I addressed you. Star-Lord, hey, I'm not mad about it, but I will call it out. Yeah. Look, I didn't hate the movie. Ghostbusters 2016. I just thought it was badly written. And I hated the fact, this is one thing I did hate. I hated the fact that they marketed and promoted the film as if it was part of that same universe. But then when you watched it, you found out that it was a completely different universe altogether. You know, it was very disappointing that they did that. But yeah, Mad Max Fury Road Valhalla level 8 to 10. Furiosa 6 to 8. Great, but not the best. Again, I love the attempt to really solidify the lore, solidify the universe, give us more information about what we were introduced to in Fury Road. Gave us a little backstory, a little origin story on Furiosa, who is, yeah, a great character in this universe. A movie without Max at all, with the exception of that one thing I mentioned that I won't mention here, because we are not spoiling anything in this portion. But it is very much a Mad Max type of movie in this universe. So for that, I appreciated it. So great, but not the best. But there you go. That's my ranking of the Mad Max movies there. I would love to rate One Piece. Never watched it. What's going on, Shrikant? How you doing? Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I would love to, but I've never watched One Piece. Now, I do want to watch the live action because I've heard nothing but good things about it. It's in my queue of like endless amount of shows I have to watch and catch up on. It's just never ending for me. If only there was a lot more time. Starlord, what it is a rebooted property. Yeah, it is what it is. Shrikant is hailing from India. Everyone say what's up to Shrikant. Appreciate you. Starlord 7, I'd rather original work, not name-grabbing movies already good. Of course, I think a lot of us do. You know, at the end of the day, we all really want just a nice original stories. But, you know, for studios, it's names and IP franchises that make the bucks, right? So, of course, we're going to see a lot of that stuff. It sucks. It is what it is. But I guarantee you, I have a strong feeling that in the next couple of years, we are going to see a lot more independent stories and movies coming out. By the way, just a quick reminder for you guys watching on the short stream, don't forget to hit that like button. Do me a favor. That would be awesome if you could do that. Yeah, Shrikant, what do you like to watch? If you want a suggestion, let us know what kind of movies you like. What kind of genres? I'm sure many of us here can suggest something for you. But yeah, I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot more of these independent movies. More A24, more Neon. Yeah, these type of stories coming out because, one, it's easier to make, and these are the movies that actually make money at the box office. So I won't be surprised if we see more of that coming out. And less focus on big name, big properties because they're not making money. They spend so much money and then it doesn't work out. So, you know, you have Marvel and Disney taking the steps back to kind of refocus. They're going to have to. Because at the end of the day, they're just losing money on everything. Shrikant loves science fiction movies. All right, guys. What are some of your favorite science fiction movies? Maybe we could like suggest some movies. For me, some of my favorite science fiction movies, well, you can't go wrong with the classics. Alien, Aliens. I love those two movies. The Predator movies, love those. You know, we were just talking about Mad Max. In a way, that's kind of science fiction, but it's more like action fantasy, I guess, right? I rewatched all the Mad Max movies this week. What else? Sci-fi. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Wow.
Interstellar is great. In my opinion, Interstellar is probably the best Christopher Nolan movie ever made. Even better than Inception. And I didn't think that way the first time I saw it. When I saw that movie for the first time, I felt very confused. And I was like, what the hell did I watch? I watch it now. My mind is blown how much I pick up now. I guess it comes with like age and, experiences. But yeah, fantastic movie. Gravity is another good movie. If you haven't seen that, Gravity is a great movie. Star-Lord, it's focused primarily on relatable, progressive people. True. Gravity is a great movie. I would suggest that if you haven't seen it yet. Oz with the question, will Deadpool Wolverine be the return of the billion movie? I think Spider-Man No Way Home will be the last for a while. I think Deadpool and Wolverine has a good chance at being the billion-dollar movie. And will be the first one of this year. Because last year we got Barbie, right? That was the billion-dollar movie from last year. Right? Barbie made $1 billion, didn't it? Hold on. Let's see here. Yeah. Barbie did 1.4 billion. So I would say that Deadpool and Wolverine definitely has the chance. Probably, I'll be very honest with you, might be the only one that has the strongest chance to make $1 billion this year. Most of that is going to be worldwide. Most of that is definitely going to be worldwide. Like overseas. Domestic, it's going to get a good portion, but I think the majority of the money is going to be overseas. Oh, you like my hat and specs? Thanks. These aren't real glasses. These are blue light glasses. I need to wear them whenever I do computer work or I stream because my eyes tend to get very tired. So this definitely helps. But thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Think of Walter Peck not wanting a kid to be a Ghostbuster. Tell me, did she become one at the end of the movie? Are you talking about, which movie are you talking about? Oh, all right. What? Oh, you're talking about Frozen Empire, right? Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, she was always a Ghostbuster. Is that she couldn't act like a Ghostbuster, right? Because she was underage. But she's a Ghostbuster. Yeah. She was always one. It says this. Her parents finally allowed her to be one at the end of the movie. Yeah, Barbie was the $1 billion movie from last year. I think Oppenheimer did it too. Let's see. I'm going to check right now. Oh, Oppenheimer came close. 976 million. Very close. All right, Srikanth. Thank you for joining for a little bit. Enjoy your nap. Hope to see you again on the stream someday. And hope you get to find a nice movie to watch. I don't think we were any help. You know, that's one of the hardest questions I always have. You know, I watch movies all the time. I watch movies multiple times a week. I talk about movies here on YouTube. You know, I review movies, I do recaps, all that stuff. But whenever someone asks me, hey, can you recommend a movie for me? I freeze. I totally get frozen because it's hard for me to recommend movies when like I don't know you enough, you know, or not always the movies that I like, I would say that someone else would like. You know, it's hard. I want to help, you know. It's just I find it to be very difficult sometimes. I don't know if any of you guys feel the same way. But it's always very difficult for me to recommend any kind of movie to somebody. And like I said, like my taste may be very different from your taste. Like I know for a fact my taste is a little different from my friends. So, you know, sometimes when we talk about the same movie, one of us would like it, another one wouldn't like it. Or two of us would like it and another person didn't like it, you know. Or one would like it for one reason, the other person would like it for another reason. It's so different, you know. But that's just how it is. Movie is subjective. You know, everyone takes things very differently. But I love the question that Oz put out there. And again, if I haven't said so yet, check out Oz. He does this awesome funny show with the Double Toasted crew on Monday evenings called What's Up, Son? Or What Up, Son? Check it out. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, you could see him on here one of these days. We need to work it out. I want to see you do movie reactions while occasionally hitting the sound bits. Oh, man. You know what? If YouTube wasn't so hard when it comes to copyright, I would definitely do more of that, man. Definitely do more of that. That's something I have in mind for like a paid membership tier where I could do that behind the scenes and not worry about that stuff, you know? Because I would love to do that. For sure. I would love to do that. Edit that. You know how long it takes to edit stuff? You want to be my editor, Star-Lord? I don't have a lot of money. Yeah, I can do it. I just have to dedicate a lot of time. Honestly, what I could do is the next couple of months for me is going to be really nuts, personally. So maybe I could do more stuff in 4 months' time when a lot of that personal stuff gets cleared off my plate. No, YouTube is not my mainstream of income. To be quite honest, the money that I make here on YouTube is very small. If I'm to be completely open and honest, in the amount of money I make in a month, I can maybe pay for a streaming service or two. That's about it. So unfortunately, I'm not that big yet. But notice I said yet. All right, let's look at the movies coming out this summer. And let's see who has the chance, the strongest chance at hitting the $1 billion mark. I already said Deadpool Wolverine will definitely do that. For sure. React to Mad Max Thunderdome as your first one for me. All right, I'll put that on the list. Matt, these are the ones I want to do. Since you asked for it, Beyond Thunderdome, I have to do Madam Web. I just have to. What's going on, Elias? Is that your name, Elias? Day's going well so far. How about you? Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for chatting in. Glad to see you watching. Madam Web, Beyond Thunderdome. Gotta do that. There was one other movie I had in mind. Oh, um, no. God, there was. Oh, I definitely want to go back to some of these like really bad horror movies. You know, like Malignant. Malignant wasn't terrible, but there was a lot of laughable moments in it. Um, Megan. Megan is pretty bad. How many subs do I have? I just recently crossed 9,000. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what other. There's so many though. That's the thing. I don't think honestly, I don't think I could ever run out of bad movies to react to. Reduce it to 25-30 minute runtime for edit. All right. I'll keep that in mind. Again, it's just the time. I just have to dedicate the time for all that stuff. All right. So, Furiosa. I don't think that will hit a billion. It'll do okay, but I don't think it will. Bad Boys Ride or Die? Definitely not. Inside Out 2? I think it will be strong for Disney, but it won't hit a billion because families don't want to see movies in theaters anymore. They rather watch it at home. Let's see. Quiet Place Day 1? It'll do okay, but nowhere near a billion. Let's see what else. So that already covers everything in June, right? In July, Despicable Me 4, no. Again, family films, I don't think will ever do as well as they used to do in the theaters, unlike back in the day. Twisters, a lot of people are you know, I shouldn't say people. Certain people in that studio is depending on Twisters to do really well in theaters. I don't know if we will do as well as they hope it will. But I feel like for the summer box office season, that's one of the movies that they need to do extremely well at the box office. Deadpool and Wolverine, I said that's going to be the movie of the year. Let's see. Borderlands, yeah, no, that's not gonna. Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan movie, no way. Alien Romulus, no. I think it'll be good, but I don't think it's gonna do huge numbers. The Crow, yeah, right. That thing was for me already seems like it's dead on arrival, and I'm not trying to be mean on it. I don't know. And just based off people's reactions for the most part, people are hating on this movie before it even comes out. Let's see. And that's pretty much, that leads into, what's that? That's August. So that's the summer right there. So I'm going to be, and I was going to plan to talk about this tomorrow, and I'll still talk about it. This summer, box office season is going to be very poor. Very bad. It's not going to be good. And then for the rest of the year, we got Beetlejuice. I'm going to share my thoughts on the newest trailer for tomorrow. You want a Beetlejuice 2 official trailer reaction? Yeah, the thing is, like, I already saw the trailer, so I can't do like a fresh reaction to it, but I will give a review on it tomorrow. On tomorrow's stream. Yeah. My reaction to recent trailers kind of pissed me off because they all got hit with copyright strikes. Not channel strikes, just video strikes. So it got me really mad. So I kind of took a break from that. But yeah, I have thoughts on this Beetlejuice trailer. You got Transformers 1, but that's a kids show. That's a kids movie, I should say. Joker, I think will do well, but would not hit a billion. Smile 2 is coming out this year? Totally forgot about that. Venom: The Last Dance, nope. Gladiator 2, I think will do decently, but not big. Moana 2, will do decently, but not big. Wicked, I don't know. After seeing that trailer recently, I don't know. I don't think Wicked's gonna. It might do well because of when it's coming out. Isn't it coming out during the holidays? So it might have a chance. Then we got Kraven the Hunter, Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, Mufasa the Lion King, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Nosferatu. Yeah, I think, honestly, this year, there's only going to be one movie that has the biggest chance of hitting $1 billion, and that's Deadpool and Wolverine. And then that's it. That's it. This summer is going to be very sad for the box office. Unfortunately. Just based off what's trending already so far. Remember, The Fall Guy had a lot of high hopes and expectations that I was going to do really well in the theater. And honestly, in my honest opinion, I think more people should have watched that movie because it is a lot of fun. It's very entertaining and the performances were great. No one went to see it. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes started strong, but fizzled really quickly. We'll see what happens with Furiosa. But I have a strong feeling the general audience is going to be kind of mixed on this movie when they finally see it. But we'll see what happens. But that is a conversation to have for another day, possibly for tomorrow. So make sure to tune in. Tune in? You blew it! Wow. How much you think, them dickless? Make sure you tune in tomorrow to hear more of my thoughts on the summer box office season and what to expect. And tomorrow's stream, I will also recap some of the big news that dropped this past week. So if you want to hear more about my thoughts and takes on all those things, you could tune in tomorrow for that. One thing about Beetlejuice, thumbs up or thumbs out right now as of a hint. I'm going to do this. Thumb sideways. How about that? Let's just say I have some concerns. I have some concerns. I was high on it before when I saw the teaser. After seeing this, I have some concerns. But we'll leave it at that for now. Oh, I don't have that soundbite anymore. No. Yeah. But I think this is a good place to end things for today. Thank you again so much for everyone who tuned in this morning. Shout people out. Of course, Star-Lord. Always happy to see you here. My buddy Oz, OG, Srikanth, Elias, I hope I'm saying your name right. Def, I want to say Def. You got Bailey. You got It's Cass here. Christopher with his toe. Elazer, Audrey Dancer, and RIP. Thank you all for tuning in, watching, chiming in, chatting along. Really appreciate all of you. If you are around and free, I will be streaming again tomorrow around noontime for recapping the week's news and giving my reviews and thoughts on 2 trailers that came out. Beetlejuice, and the new Beverly Hills Cop Axel Foley trailer. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that, tune in tomorrow. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, all that good stuff. Bye-bye, y'all. Catch you later. Peace out. What a lovely day. What a lovely, lovely day.